You're listening to Sex and Love with me, your host, Dr. Emily Jamia. This series focuses on all topics related to sex and love both here in the US and around the world. My goal is to not only showcase sexually empowered people, but also give a voice to the challenges many face due to the taboo nature of sexuality in many cultures. Okay. So welcome everybody. I am so excited for today's interview. I am joined by Dr. Evelyn Stallard, who is a Dutch sexologist and psychologist based in Amsterdam. She owns a sexology practice called Evelyn Stallard Sexual Health and is involved as an expert in various Dutch media, including nationwide TV and newspaper, and is the sex and relationship expert on the Dutch version of Married at First Sight. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, hello.
Yes. So, I started this series and in part because I'm so interested in shedding light on various cultural norms around sex and relationships. And, I think probably here in the US, the first thing that comes to people's mind when they hear sex in Amsterdam is the red light district, which we'll get into, but I want to save that and begin by talking about just in general, the Dutch sentiment or feeling around sex, because it's a very progressive, liberal country when it comes to sexology. And I think that starts from a very early age, just in the sex education around youth. So could you maybe start by talking about that a little bit?
Yes, of course. Yes. I think it is common that every boy and girl get some first information from their parents when they are, I think, somewhere from 7 till 11. And then they get hopefully a book from their parents with suitable education about sexuality. And often that is of course difficult for the children. So at school there's also there are different moments in the how do you say that in America they have the lower school,
like elementary school.
Elementary school, yeah, they have there already in springtime. They have those kind of information when the birds and the bees and the little all the little animals get born, and then you already have the playful information about that. And later on, there's also in the biology lesson, there's a lot to learn, and there are even condoms that are put on things. So it's pretty okay. I think we can still do much better in Holland with the sex education, but I think we're doing a great job in that. And of course, there is the whole thing that in Holland it is allowed to smoke weed. So I think a lot of young people start doing that, and of course we can also start earlier, I think, than in America with alcohol. So that makes us also earlier in youth experiencing those things, and therefore also maybe earlier in sexuality. I can imagine that is one of the reasons. I think all parents tell their children that sex is something that you can enjoy.
Right.
And I think that's a good thing. And of course, not everybody does, but in essence, it's a thing that you can enjoy. You're allowed to enjoy it. And you don't necessarily need to keep it, for after marriage. It's all fine if you're just gonna explore and have it in your own time. Right. So that's a bit how we see it in Holland, and it's something joyful and fun and light. So that's a good thing, I think.
Yeah, I think you hit on a few key points, and one of the most important being that this is not a one-time conversation that happens at school. Like here in the US, a lot of times there's like a one-time conversation that happens maybe in 5th or 6th grade, and it's about periods, and it's a lot of times usually very fear-based. There isn't much information, especially where I live in Texas, on comprehensive sex education. So a lot of kids never get instruction on how to properly use condoms or anything like that. And I also heard you say that kids are getting information both at home and at school in various formats. There is conversation and dialogue. There's also books given. But I think generally what probably makes the Dutch model stand out against the US model is that it's very pleasure-based in focus. That's, there's a positive light set on sexuality. And I know you said a moment ago that that some sexual practices may start a little bit earlier, but one study I read said that a lot of kids end up having their first sexual experiences around the same time as kids here in the US. And I think that there is a fear that if we start the conversation too soon, that it's going to make kids want to have sex earlier. But first of all, we don't really find that to be true in the research that I've read. Second of all, I think we see the benefit of comprehensive sex education in the Netherlands. One study found that only 11.8 girls are getting pregnant compared, per 1,000 girls, compared to 72.2 pregnancy per 1,000 girls here in the US. So that's quite a big difference. I think they're much higher rates of condom use. And so you say there's room for improvement, but compared to what we have here in the US, I think you guys are a model to us.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. But that's such a big difference. My God.
Definitely. And would you say that that's sort of always been the case in Holland, or is it something that's evolved in the past few decades? I'm curious the evolution of that and how that came to be.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm now 39. I think my parents were a little bit more hesitant, more bit, how do you say it, conservative. So then it was more school, and it depended on your parents if they were like liberal or not. But it got better and better and better. And yeah, I'm also one of the people who's rooting for that it gets even better. Also information about porn and all those things that are new in these days. That is so important. And of course it was also in my youth, but not so much. I think the internet was not really there, but later on. But so I think it evolved for sure. So it was more conservative, but not really different, not big difference, I think.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about how you came to be a sexologist and what piqued your interest in the field. I'd love to hear your story.
Yeah, well, my story is I studied psychology in Maastricht in the south of Holland, and I really love that. But I'm a really happy person, a positive person, and I found it a little bit heavy all the time about depression and anxieties, and of course that's a big part of the study. Sure. And at a certain point, I had a trimester sexology, and I was like, oh. But this is something that people underestimate, like the effect that it has on a relationship, on your well-being, on your quality of life. And I was like, okay, but I want to help people with that they can see, like, hey, if you have that in a well way, can I say it? Then it gives your life so much more quality. And so I saw a little. How do you say it? Something that draw me to that. Like, I'm gonna do this. This is my mission. So I pointed my things, everything on that. And from then on, I worked at several places, at a rehab and at a hospital as a sexologist. And at a certain point, I was like, okay, but now I'm gonna have my own practice and do it myself. And that was the point I wanted to achieve, and I did, and I'm really happy to do that every day, and also to speak to a broader audience with media and stuff, because I want to show everybody that there should not be a taboo. And even in Holland there are a lot of taboos still on sex, so I hope to get that a bit loosen up the more and more.
Definitely. So can you talk, well, first of all, to your point about, I think you're right. When sex is good, life is good, right? And I think that's probably something we have in common that drew us to the field of sexology. I too found an opportunity to I think that sex is so life affirming and it's so important for a relationship. And when people feel sexually satisfied, they tend to be happier and feel their lives are more meaningful and anxiety goes down. And so I think it's a really interesting window into the human psyche and opportunity to help people with a part of their lives that's so fundamentally human, yet still something that a lot of people have feelings of shame around. So I'm interested to hear a little bit about what kinds of issues you see in your private practice, because yes, generally speaking, there's a lot more acceptance around sexuality in the Netherlands compared to here in the US, which is still very puritanical. So what kinds of issues do people come in with?
Yeah, most of the people that I see struggle with loss of desire. If I can say it that way. So they have difficulty with all the things in life that they want to do well, and they also want to have that great sex life, but they feel that it is all too much, and they have stress, and they have children, and they also have to do that part of sex, and that gives them low sex drive, and then the balance is not there anymore in the relationship. And they come to me and they want it to be different. And I see that this the most in my practice. And the funny thing is that it is not all women that have that issue, because it's so typically that we all say like, oh, but the women, they do sometimes have difficulty with desire. But no, it's also men. And I think it's really great that men have the balls to go and get some help from a sexologist in that, and just say out loud like, okay, I have difficulty with that too. And so it's both men and women who struggle with this problem a lot.
I see the same thing here. And I would imagine in Holland, where there's more gender equality, that you probably see even more of a split, because there tends to be more equal distribution of household responsibilities and child rearing. And so like here, a lot of that still falls on the mother's shoulders or the woman's shoulders. And, and so there's probably, I see more men with low desire than people might think, but I would imagine there, just because of gender equality, you probably see an even more even distribution.
Yeah, that can be. That's interesting what you say. It's I think it's a good thing that people dare to get help. And I think that also gets better and better. People, of course, as the thing that you do now, they hear about it more on social media, and they're like, hey, maybe that is something that I need to change or need to work on. And then they get help. And I'm so happy with that people do, because it gives them so much relief, like, oh, there is help and there is a solution. And I'm so happy that they all go out the door with a big smile and the motivation to work on it. So that's so great.
Yeah, it's what makes our work so gratifying and fulfilling, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell me a little bit about what relationship trends you're seeing in the Netherlands. My understanding is that people aren't getting married as much as they used to, that people are opting for like legal partnerships, which is different in some ways than marriage. I think the word, I can't pronounce this, but it's a registered partnership. I don't know, you can say the Dutch word for that. Can you talk a little bit about why you think, marriage might be on the decline, and what the difference is between a marriage and a registered partnership versus just cohabitation?
I think in Holland, the more and the more women have the feeling like, okay, but I want to be equal to my partner, and I have my own money and I have my own things, and that's fine. And when they get married, it's a lot of women don't see the value of sharing everything. And we had a system for a long time that we all had to split when people get divorced 50-50. But I think since a year or something, that is gone, and that makes a difference for people, because then they say, okay, it's fine to marry because we have our own money, and then we can just keep that in that kind of sense. I think the registered partnership, geregistreerd partnerschap in Dutch.
Thank you. I wasn't going to even attempt that.
yeah, it is a less romantic way, but it's fine. And for a lot of people, they're like, yeah, this is fine for us, and we put our money on other places. And yeah, so it's a bit of modern feeling, like I'm not stuck to someone, and if it's not, yeah, not for life, then yeah, then it can be also. So yeah, it,
So what is the
yeah,
key what is the key
I'm sorry.
difference? No, it's okay. I was just going to say, what is the key difference between a registered partnership and a marriage?
Yeah, I think with marriage, you just do the pledge, like for
Okay.
better, for worse,
Oh, okay.
and you have more the bond.
Hmm.
And I don't think there is much difference in financial stuff or that kind of way, but it's all like, I think in your head that it's more that you're more how do you say it, a bit more connected. I'm married too.
Mhm.
And I think it's beautiful to give each other the vow to always work on a relationship and not to leave each other very easily. But a
Mhm.
lot of people, I think, yeah, especially in Holland, they think a little bit modern about that,
Mhm.
and they're more like, yeah, but if it's not that for me anymore, then I just leave. And so it's easier
Okay.
to quit the registered partnership than to quit a marriage. Then it's, yeah, more difficult and costs more money, that kind of things.
Okay.
But in a psychological way, it's the same, I think.
Okay.
Almost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. So people are having this attitude that, hey, I think we're living longer and this might not be the only relationship I have for my entire life. Let's be realistic
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
get the
Yeah.
legal benefits of
Yeah.
marriage without the romantic long-term promise.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And a lot of people say, well, I rather spend my money for my children than
Mhm.
for a big marriage and that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And yeah, everybody is really okay with that in Holland. So that's, I think, why people just feel free to choose this or that, and
Right.
everybody is okay with that.
Mhm.
And yeah, and that's
Yeah.
fine. But yeah, you see more in Holland that people choose also for open relationships. I see
Mhm.
it.
The open relationship.
Uh, yeah,
Huh.
that you're now most of the time those people are not married, but then they're saying like, hey, it's okay to have someone or to have sexual contact with
Mhm.
someone else.
Yeah.
And they often have really good rules for that, because that is really necessary. But you see it more and more, and I think it's more in Amsterdam and the bigger cities
Yeah.
than in the smaller villages in Holland.
Mhm.
But it yeah, I see that people are choosing for that more. So being less monogamous.
Monogamous.
Yeah, yeah, and being more open to other people in their lives.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been doing this work for about 15 years now. And when I first started, maybe once every 6 months, a couple would come in wanting to explore the idea of non monogamy or open
Right.
relationships. And now I would say it's a conversation that comes up at least once a week, that people are
Right.
curious,
Yeah.
to explore
Yeah.
that. So it sounds like you're seeing the
Yeah.
same trend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's a good thing if people feel that way.
Mhm.
That they're, but yeah, for myself, I'm always like, yeah, what you feel that you're happy with is the best. And if you can have a balance in your relationship, because I think that's the most important,
Yeah.
yeah, then it's fine. But it's,
Mhm.
yeah, it requires a lot of good conversations and
Right.
good rules for that, I
Yes.
think. And that is
I
not
think.
always the fact, I'm
Mhm.
afraid.
Yeah, I think people underestimate how important communication and boundary setting and rule making is to do
Yeah,
that,
sure.
without hurting
Yeah,
anybody. Yeah,
yeah, for
definitely.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
And so you mentioned that you're the expert for the Dutch version of Married at First Sight, which I didn't even realize there was a Dutch version until I was preparing for this interview. And I think I mentioned to you, I have a good friend here in the US Viviana, who's on the American version. So despite this trend towards non-monogamy and registered partnerships, it still sounds like there's a group of people who want to get married
Yeah.
and are
Yes, of
struggling to find
course.
someone. So I'm curious about that group of people as well and what you see being an expert
Yeah.
on the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there are still a lot of people who want to marry from religious from religious reasons, sorry, but also just from the romantic kind of way, just the picture and then the big wedding gown and the vows. But what I see from the program is that a lot of people struggle with dating, with always falling for the wrong person or the same, and then they end up in difficult situations. But we have Tinder. I think that is common also in America. And Tinder is in Holland, it is really a superficial way to connect with people because it's often about sex. And people who are really searching for relationships, they sometimes find a relationship with that, but often they get people who are just on a search for a booty call. So unfortunately people struggle then a lot, and then they sign up for married at first sight because they trust in science to give them the right person, and they don't trust themselves anymore to find one. So they trust in us, and every year we have a lot of new people who apply, and also this year it was again a lot. But they're all like beautiful and nice and sweet and great, so I'm like, why? But I'm happy to help them find a great hopefully perfect match.
They just need a little expert guidance. I think there's a lot of, that's what my colleague here says as well, that these are wonderful people who a lot of them have just had bad luck and need
true
help.
But it is a great thing, and it is I'm really happy that I'm part of the show, because a lot of people say it's insane, but in Holland, I don't know how it is in America, but in Holland it's really pure. It is, people are not casted, can I say that? They're not models, or they're not actresses, and they really want to find love.
Person.
And they're not paid, and they get really married in Holland. So in a lot of countries it's fake, but in Holland it's real. So they have really that the law is it's signed up and sealed, and so it's a big thing. So it's really nice, and this year we're busy with the new season, so I'm curious what it will be.
That's awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun. So let's talk a little bit about the red light district, because I think that's what Amsterdam is most well known for. And I think that's probably what a lot of our listeners are most curious about. So what would you say, first, let's say, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about prostitution in Amsterdam?
Yes, that's a good one. Well, I think a misconception is that it's difficult because it's so different. There are girls who are really happy in what they do. They're like, no, this is my choice, and I pay for my rent like this, and I'm happy and I'm all fine. But still there is some hidden how do you say that, heaviness, and there is still oh, sorry, I'm looking for the word,
darker side, maybe.
Sorry?
Like a darker side to it.
Yes, for sure, a darker side, and there are probably still women doing this against their wills. And that's the darker side that I'm often thinking, like, oh my God, that's also going on. But I know that the government and the mayor of Amsterdam is really having their rules up, and really looking very strict on everybody, and so I think it's a lot less already, but still, if people want to be bad in those things, they can. But I think the majority of the red light district are women who are really happy in what they're doing, and happy that they can earn their money this way. And everybody their own taste, I think.
Definitely something for everybody. Are the majority of the workers Dutch, or would you say they come from other countries?
I think it is around 50-50.
Okay.
I'm not totally how do you say it, aware of what the difference is, but I think it's 50-50.
Okay.
What I see is that it's also a lot of tourists who use the women, or can I say that, who go to the prostitutes, I'm sorry. But there are also a lot of Dutch men, and I don't know if you see it a lot in your practice, but what I hear a lot from my clients is that there are a lot of clients that are a bit porn addicted, and then they have like the prostitutes as their extra shot of dopamine, because the porn gives the brain so much dopamine, and then they go and search for those prostitutes to give them that extra great feeling. So that is what I hear often in my practice, that those guys go to the prostitutes, and that's a little bit of a new movement that I see for using prostitutes.
So tell me what your feeling is about prostitution generally as a sexologist, and kind of what's your general sentiment around the profession?
Yeah, it's difficult because I would only say do it when you really want it, and when you have when you enjoy it, and not for the money, and not for the outcome, and not for and maybe some say I enjoy it every minute, but as a sexologist, I would say it is beautiful if you can combine love and sexuality. And for some people, it is just lust, and that is also okay, I think. But I rather have them enjoying it, and I hope that that is the case. So that is what I'm thinking. Like, I hope that they're safe and that they know what they are doing, and on that level, I think it's fine that it exists, and it's one of the oldest jobs that there professions that there is. So I think it will always exist, and that's fine, but I hope they stay healthy.
Yes.
And safe.
I think that's interesting what you say, because there's a lot of conversation here in the US around the decriminalization of prostitution, in the hopes that decriminalizing it will help these women have more access to health care and have more protection. I think that there's a lot of fear around reporting violent crimes, because women are afraid that they'll get in trouble for doing so, because they're breaking the law themselves. And, people think too that sex trafficking will go down significantly if there's decriminalization, which it sounds like all of that has happened in the Netherlands. But I hear you saying that it's not 100%, and these things still happen, and that there are still women who are probably having sex against their will.
Yeah, probably there is, but I hope it is less as ever, because they did a lot of good things to already, what you say, that was the word I needed, decriminalize it. So so then I hope that will get better and better, and eventually there won't be any women who have it that way.
And is it primarily women working in the red light district, or are you seeing, are there male sex workers as well? And it sounds like there's probably something for everybody.
For women, no, there are only the gigolos, and those guys, they are here, but you have to call them, I think, or order them online.
They're not going to be in the window.
No, they don't do the windows, I think, but maybe I'm not aware of it, but I don't think there are males behind the red windows.
No. That's interesting. So it sounds like still it's, and what I understand about the red light district is it's actually one of the safest areas in the city now, because there's such a high police presence to try to protect the women. Is that right?
For sure. There's a lot of police there, but it is also still very crowded. So it is still a hotspot, and some people are just only checking out and just luring a bit, and other people enjoy it a lot. So it's such a double way of what is going on there.
Yeah. I've only visited Amsterdam. I've only visited Amsterdam once, and of course, being a sexologist, I had to take myself to the red light district just to check it out. And it was a little bit different than what I anticipated. It was very crowded. You could tell there were a lot of tourists and a lot of people just kind of gawking at the women, which was a little bit hard to see.
Yeah, sometimes I feel sorry for them, but I don't think that is necessary.
No.
And I always try to laugh at them when I see them. And I'm always imagining like, how would their day be? But that is, we probably cannot imagine that. And it's more like factory work, like one by one by one. That's sometimes so strange to realize.
Do you have any that you've treated in your practice?
Yes, I treat, but they're more like call girls, so more girls at clubs. They had difficulty because then they wanted to have a relationship next to their work, and that they found really difficult to combine that. And but it's really good that they get help for that, but not a lot, but some do. And I'm happy to help them.
That seems to be the biggest issue, is that they're trying to navigate how to have a primary romantic relationship alongside working as a call.
And especially from the brain, it's a whole different way of having sex to be only having a performance or really making love. Those are so big from each other. But it's interesting.
Definitely. So you said that the primary issue you treat is loss of desire, which is the same, that I would say I treat as well. Generally speaking, though, with the more progressive attitudes in the Netherlands around sexuality, what do you see in terms of people feeling hung up about sexual desires that they might have, or specific fantasies or kinks? Do you see people struggle with that very much, or would you say there's wider acceptance for a variety of sexual interests?
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of taboos on those things that are not in the normal, how do you say that?
Like mainstream.
Yes. So I think that's what people do. That we all want to be normal. We want to be part of a group, and we all want to be somehow a bit the same. So if that's not it, I think we all feel different, and if feeling different can sometimes be not so great, and making people less feeling less happy. So no, I think that is probably a bit the same here. So they struggle, and some people are really tough, and they just say, okay, it's this and I love it and it's great. But I think the majority of the people really struggle with fetishes and things that are just not being normal in that sense. And I often think it's a pity, because it's something that from youth on it got into your system, and it gives you probably a warm and great feeling. And a lot of people can integrate it in their lives if you just try to find the best way. And but I'm happy that they get help, and I hope for the future that people own it more, like, hey, this is a part from me and it's okay. And but that takes time, I think. That's still a long shot.
I'm surprised to hear that. I would have thought that people felt freer sexually, but it sounds like at the end of the day, people want to do whatever they deem to be quote unquote normal and mainstream.
Yeah, for sure. And I also see that with and that's maybe also interesting, I don't know how it is in the USA, with masturbating. There are still a lot of girls in Holland who have the feeling that masturbating is a thing that you do if you don't have sex with your partner, not enough, or if you're sad or alone, or but not when you're just having your relationship and doing it next to your partner sex.
And self-pleasure and
and some women see it when a partner do it, masturbating, then they see it as how do you say that, as cheating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's such a pity. And I'm like, oh yeah, we're living in Holland, and come
No,
on,
come on.
why is
Yeah.
that still there? So yeah, I do my best to get it out there. Like, please do it, because it's healthy and it's good, and it is only making you a better partner
Right.
in bed. So yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
so
interesting.
we
I'm
have to
surprised.
fight for that still very hard. Yeah,
Mhm.
and maybe an interesting thing to know is that in Holland, if you have the, I think, I don't know how you call it in English, but if you have the pelvis,
Mhm.
you have like the vulva, the vagina. You all know that has the same names, I think.
Uh-huh.
But the vulva, the in front, so more against the pelvis, we call it in Holland shame area, schaamstreek, and that's
Wow.
so horrible. So it's from way, 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 way back.
Uh-huh.
We call it literally, if you translate it, it's called shame area, and that's such a stupid word, and it's still in our dictionaries,
Oh my
and
God.
it's still the only word we use if we talk about our vulva or vagina or the front, so the
Mhm.
pelvis. The
Yeah.
whole area is schaamstreek, yeah, shame area,
Wow.
and
I am
that,
shocked to hear that.
yeah, and me too. Every time I hear it, and it's this thing that I am always like, why can we change that? But it is
Yeah.
just in our language,
Wow.
and yeah, we should really get rid of it, because it also gives little children immediately
Yeah.
like the signal, like shame. Yeah, you should be shamed for
Right.
this. No, horrible.
Is
So yeah,
there
that's.
is there a push to change the name or advocacy against that language?
Yeah, there have been a lot of people who said that, like, please give it a different name and just call it the way it is, like vulva, or
Yeah.
but yeah, it's really, I think, in our culture and in our language, and it's stuck there. So
Mm.
it's just, yeah, I think I hope people use it less and less, but it is now stuck in our lives, in our Dutch lives.
That is interesting.
So
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So I tell everybody, please, yeah, see that
Don't use
difference.
that
But
word. Yeah.
yeah, no, but it's yeah, that's also a difficult thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm learning so much today that maybe it's not as progressive as I thought it was. I mean, it
Yeah,
sounds like
yeah.
definitely things are changing for the better, but it's not quite as advanced, I guess, as
No,
I believed.
no, yeah. I think everybody says that from Holland, and if you're living in it, then it's like, yeah, we can do better in some points. And I
Yeah.
think it's also because we're just human. So everybody has their own, yeah, shame and things from the past, and yeah, things are just also in our DNA, I think.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure, definitely.
yeah,
Like those things can
yeah.
stick around and they can get passed from one generation to the next, and
Yes,
these
yeah, yeah,
beliefs, the feelings.
yeah. And the thing that the thing that we all want to be normal, I think that's also
Yeah,
worldwide.
right, right. Want to fit into the group. So, what
Yeah.
would you say? We'll wrap up with what would you say are your top 3 tips for finding sexual fulfillment? I'm going to leave that very
Great.
open ended. What would you say are your top 3 tips?
My top 3 tips. Well, I think if I see it in a relationship way, I think that you mean that.
Mhm.
That I would say it is so powerful to make an effort for each other. Because I always compare it with a painting on the wall.
Mhm.
You bought it at a certain moment, and at a certain moment you don't see it anymore. It is there every day, but you don't see it. You just don't stop and look at it anymore, and just take it in. So make an effort to see and hear each other, and to see what the other one needs, and to just, yeah, take some time and quality time to make an effort to be open to sexual cues. So in every the the whole broad sense of making an effort. It's not only to put on the lingerie. No, it's to really see and hear the other person. So that's my first thing that I say. And of course, second, it sounds a bit boring, but it's communication. It's so important. And not only in a relationship, but I think also between friends. Tell the other person, like, I have difficulty sometimes. It is not always so easy. Do you struggle also with this and this and that? Then you can give the other person the feeling like, hey, I'm not alone, or she's also having problems, so it's not so bad. So please do talk and communicate. The third one, let's think, what is the third one? I always think, and I've once read it, that there is a lot of strength in sharing memories with your partner. So if you share memories about a really great moment where you had a really great laugh or a really great sex or that kind of things, if you share that again with each other and just relive it a bit in your head, then it works through with your hormones and all the things going on in your brain, and that gives you an extra a great feeling together. So do that once in a while, and you will see that it has a lot of lightness to come with it.
I think that's
and can I add a fourth one?
Bonus tip.
I think that's the most important thing to do. And we said it before, please enjoy. Never have sex for another person. Have it for yourself, for your pleasure, and enjoy it and be light. And that's the only thing.
I think at a fundamental level, sex should be about mutual pleasure, right? Otherwise it's not.
And it doesn't need to be perfect. It can be messy and strange and goofy.
Maybe something you laugh about, embrace the unexpected.
As long as you get happy of it, then it's great.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a pleasure talking with you. I hope to visit Amsterdam again in the future, and when I will definitely call you so that we can get together.
Let me know. For sure. Thank you so much that I was in this show, and good luck with everything.
Thank you. And how can people find you? Do you want to share your social media or your website?
People can find me on Instagram on Eveline Stallaert. But if you Google me, Sexologist Evelyn, Amsterdam Evelyn, you will find me for sure.
I'll put the link in the show notes as well.
And my practice is at the park in Amsterdam. So you will find it if you just Google. And you're always welcome, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Good luck.
Thank you. You too.
If you liked this video, drop me a like and subscribe below. Share with a friend who might find it interesting. You can also listen to this in podcast form anywhere podcasts are streamed by searching for Sex and Love with Dr. Emily Jamia. Finally, follow me across all the social media channels at Dr. Emily Jamia for daily emotional and physical intimacy tips.